Rubik's Cube in middle school was easier than this thing. What if I push this?
The sweet suffering.
Hey guys, I'm Dave and welcome to the Weird Kid Show. I am nerding out, guys. I'll tell you, today is a special treat for me, and I'm sure you will enjoy it too. Today we're going to talk to Simon Bamford. Awesome gentleman, very generous with his time to speak with us this evening. But if the name doesn't look familiar, who he is will definitely ring a bell. He played Butterball in Hellraiser 1 and 2, plus he was in the cult classic Nightbreed. So without further ado, guys, check this out. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dave. I've just been very much enjoying watching How to Make a Shrunken Head from one of your videos. Thank you. It's excellent.
That's great. Thank you. So for those that don't know who Simon is, you just happen to have been involved in like one of the biggest cult classics, written by a man by the name of Clive Barker. When I was in high school, I grabbed a book off the shelves, but it was called Hellbound Heart, which was later made into a film called Hellraiser, in which case you played Butterball, one of the Cenobites.
Yeah, and actually, you look a bit like Butterball. If that's not too rude.
Classic.
It's
I'm gonna.
head, you know.
Thank you. Well, I can't get away with this in England because they'll think I'm a hooligan or something. But
Funnily enough, I had a bald head earlier this year. I was playing a cop in a film, and I thought it would be interesting to have a bald head for it. So I shaved it all off, and it was a good look. It was a look. You know, there's something, especially on film, on camera, that is so striking about it. You know,
then did you get some strange looks out in public?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, what can I say? Hellraiser, not Hellraiser 1, but Hellraiser 2, which, to be quite honest, the part 2 is my favorite. I love that whole thing.
One and two. I was in both of them. I was friends with Clive when we did theatre together back in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And we were kind of starving, unemployed actors, and he was an unemployed writer. And a few years after that all happened, I joined his fringe theatre company. He had some success with the Books of Blood. He had a publisher, and that led to him having a few screenplays being made into films. But he wasn't happy with the way that they were going. So he persuaded the production company to let him direct the next one, which was going to be based on the Hellbound Heart. And about that same time, I rang him. I hadn't seen him for a couple of years just to see what he was up to. And he said, "Oh, I'm just about to do this little film. Do you want to play a monster in it?" And I went, "Yeah, that would be really nice." And and I also knew Doug Bradley was also in the Fringe Theatre Company, and I knew he was going to be it. And Oliver Parker, who's now a film director in his own right, he played the Removals Man, and he played Kinski, I think, as well in Nightbreed. So there were a few of us that were going to be in this little horror film based in England at Cricklewood Production Village, which doesn't exist anymore. And none of us thought it would go anywhere or do anything, but we just thought it'd be good to work on our first movie together. Yeah. And here we are, 30 years, still talking about it. It's quite incredible.
Oh, yeah. It's got such a huge cult following, and myself, when I realized I had the opportunity to talk to you, I was like the horror geek in me got all giddy and you know, because although Butterball doesn't have any lines, he does have that guttural. He does make a guttural noise every once in a while, and
he did in the original script. He did have dialogue, but what happened was they had these false teeth which they glued on top of my own teeth, and there were these like disgusting rotting dentures. And we got to the first day of shooting when I actually had my first dialogue to say, and we realized I couldn't put my lips together, and all my lines were P's and B, had P's and B's in them. And unless you can put your lips together, you can't say P's and B's. So my first line was, "Perhaps we prefer you." But
Oh,
it
yeah.
out as
Now, who
which,
would that have been to Christy?
yeah,
Kirsty? Yeah.
yeah, right. So they ended up taking all my lines and giving them to the female Cenobite, because like these days, normally they would just you would do it in ADR, you go in afterwards.
Mm.
But because it was such a small budget film, they didn't think they would have the funding to be able to do that. So they just took all my lines and gave them to the first film, Grace Kirby, who was Clive's cousin. Who
Oh,
played
really? Okay, that I didn't know. Yeah.
And yeah, so she got all my lines, and from then on, Butterball was mute, which really upset me, because it's you want to be part of it as much as you can, and
Yeah, yeah.
so, yeah, I had a little sob inside the makeup, and because it was so all encompassing, like 2 inches thick latex, nobody even noticed. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Well, he didn't have lines, but he's got a presence, that's for sure, because everyone recognizes who Butterball is, and he is a very intimidating character.
Yeah, the
He's
four of us were like rock stars in the day. We had that kind of leather rock star look, and we were very iconic. And I have to say, most of that we have to thank Image Animation and the wonderful artists there who created these incredible looks with
yeah.
the help of Clive. And Clive was very generous in his ideas and things. Clive's mind is incredible, and it wasn't surprising that the film was successful because of the detail that he puts into it, and he's such a generous person to work with. So everybody in every department, he will just go in with thousands of ideas and then throw them at people, and then say, "Have a think about all of that. Come back in a week and let's talk more and see what we can create together." And
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So it's a collaborative. That's the whole village raise a child type of situation.
very, very generous man.
That's nice. But let me ask you, okay, so I've been fortunate enough to be a person that has been in feature films, and I've worked in front of as well as behind the camera. For people that love films but have never been involved with films, it has kind of a glamorous look to it. But in
Yeah,
actuality, you and I both know that making a film is like watching paint dry.
yeah.
Uh, Lots of waiting and waiting around and waiting. Now, and I can't imagine, first of all, how long did you sit in the chair for the prosthetics to be for that whole makeup? How long did that take?
I think my call was usually 3 or 4 in the morning. And my makeup actually ended up being probably one of the shortest ones, because it was one big head.
Uh-huh.
So I would be in most of the makeup by kind of 6, 7 o'clock. But like you say, it looks so glamorous, but what you don't realize is the reality of it is so the opposite of glamorous. You
Yeah.
sit watching somebody swim through a thing of mud, and you think, yeah, that looks really cool. But the actual reality of swimming through a thing of mud, and in my case, it was wearing a head which was 2 inches thick, and like your shrunken heads, the
Uh-huh.
eyes were sewn shut.
Yeah.
No ear holes because they'd been cut off.
Hmm.
He had a nose hole because his nose was cut off, and then I had these dentures, and I'm kind of super glued into it early in the morning, and sometimes they didn't take it off until 8 at night. So like 12, 14 hours, and it was like sensory deprivation, because I couldn't see anything at all. I was completely blind. I could
Wow.
out here a little bit. I couldn't breathe through my nose at all for 14 hours. So
Wow.
it had to breathe through my mouth. And because of the dentures, my mouth was constantly filling up with water.
Yeah.
Me and the guy playing Chatterer, because he was in a similar situation, obviously with all the teeth, we were sitting in the corner, and all you could hear from us was as we
Oh,
kind of
okay.
sucked the saliva out of our mouth so we could breathe.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and and like the heat, even under the best of conditions, it must have been like a sauna under all that.
People have said that, but we were filming in March in England, and the studio was very drafty and cold. So actually that wasn't so bad. It was more that the characters, you never see them, but we were all wearing Jesus sandals. We all had skirts,
Uh-huh.
which were made out of this kind of glittery kind of Vegas material, which
Uh-huh.
doesn't read in the film probably just as well. But we also had Jesus sandals and bare feet, so it was more that we were cold from the waist down than hot from the waist up.
Oh, that's unbelievable, memorable. Did you, by any chance, were you able to keep any kind of mementos from the film, like a piece of the prosthetic, or?
No, sadly, I have a few from other films since then because I learnt the lesson that if you can do, but you know, like I do, that when you finish filming on a film doesn't mean that the film's finished filming. So stuff that if I would love to have taken stuff, but you know that prop or that head or something from that might be used 2 weeks later for another shot or something else. So I
Right.
don't do that. I
Uh-huh.
do still have the script.
Oh, okay.
Both films and the Nightbreed film, which I'm selling later this year, actually on at the prop store in London. They've got an auction in London. But the Hellraiser script's quite cool because it's got the blood stain. They dipped our fingers in blood before each take.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's got the blood stains on the script from where we were like flicking through it. So
Now, is this a shooting script where with direction and everything? And
yeah, all my notes in it and everything
okay,
else.
well, that's a rare piece.
Yeah,
Usually people only have access to the actual script that's handed out, but an actual shooting script, there's tends to be added direction and, like you say, notes and everything
yeah.
else.
And all the
That's
different colors from where they've made changes and things over
scenes
the.
and stuff. Yeah, that I hope it does well for you, and that the auction house doesn't like take too much of a chunk out of it.
It's one of those things you think I'm never gonna part with this, but I'm in my kind of 60s now, and you suddenly think it's been sitting in my attic for probably 10 years. It's never gets looked at. I might not be around in 15 years' time, in which case it will probably just get thrown away because nobody will know that it's worth anything.
Uh,
So I might as well make some money from it while I can.
you got the memories, and what you'll forget, everyone else will remind you. People like myself, and
Yeah,
so
nice for somebody who really appreciates it to have it.
yeah. Now, are you still doing a regular convention circuit, or?
I have been, yeah. Up until obviously till COVID, we were doing a lot of conventions, a lot over in the States actually. But then obviously COVID put an end to that. And then I think like 3 days before the US shut its borders, I was supposed to go to Vegas, and I had my tickets and everything else for Days of the Dead over there.
Okay.
But aptly enough, that will be my first convention next year, 2023 in February. I'm going to Days of the Dead in Vegas. So thanks.
Okay, everybody, buy your tickets. Get ready to go.
Doug will be there, and Andrew. I think Andrew Robinson. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure Andrew Robinson's going to be there too. So it should be fun. It should
Well,
be fun.
hopefully, make your way to Florida one at some point in time. We have one here, a big one that's they have it twice a year. It's called Spooky Empire. I don't know.
Spooky a few times.
Okay, so
Or when it first started, and it wasn't in Orlando. It was
Tampa.
Yeah, I think it was Tampa, the first one I did.
Yeah.
And then I think one or two in Orlando. And then in fact, one I went to and it was cancelled. But there was me and Kane Hodder and the girl from Hellraiser 2, stuck in this huge hotel in Florida. And it was like The Shining. There was nobody else there because we arrived just as the hurricane hit. The convention was shut, and there were just 3 of us wandering around these empty corridors. It was a bizarre experience.
I can't imagine being a guest and seeing Kane Hodder and you coming down that empty hallway.
Me and the girl from Imogen Borman from Hellraiser 2, we did a photo version for her daughters of Where's Wally? The Where's Wally series?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's Simey? And she took pictures in these vast ballrooms with me hiding in the corner or lying in the carpet. And then you have to look at pictures and work out where I am because we're just trying to make our own.
So it wasn't a waste. You still managed to enjoy yourself, even though. convention was canceled.
I'd love to do Spooky again. I still contact PT, and so hopefully one day we'll get that off the ground again and get over there. Yeah, it'll be good. I love Spooky's a great show. Great show.
Yeah, well, and here I live 2.5 hours from it. I'm literally an hour and 15 minutes from Tampa, and I've yet to go to one. If you go, I'll make a deal with you. If you make it there, I would like to come and shake your hand.
Okay, cool. That would be good.
Yeah. So, Clive obviously must have liked what you did in the first one because he asked you back for the second one. And then you were involved in an actual documentary, which I have to admit I've never seen. Leviathan,
Yeah.
the documentary on Hellraiser.
It's a very aptly named because I think it's 7 hours long.
Wow.
But they're really cool. The guys who made it, in fact, this week, today, I think, they are launching Pennywise, the story of it.
Okay, yeah, on Netflix.
Disgusting. I've just had some stuff online today about it, and it's not available over here in the UK or this part of Europe. But I noted, I think today it launches in the UK and the USA.
Yeah,
and
Netflix. Yeah,
are so much fun. I also worked on them on. After that, they wanted a documentary on Fright Night.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted somebody who could play Roddy McDowall, who sadly is no longer with us. And they thought, oh, he looks a bit like him. And they had Roddy McDowall's live cast.
Mm-hmm.
So would you mind wearing like Roddy McDowall's prosthetic face, learning like
Fright Night.
Welcome to Fright Night.
You gave me chills.
Roddy McDowall was great.
Well, I got to tell you, Simon, you just that Roddy McDowall is one of my favorite actors. No kidding.
Me too.
And my first exposure to him, obviously, was from the first time I saw him was on the pilot episode of Rod Serling's Night Gallery, which was a series. And then later on, obviously, I saw Planet of the Apes, and I was just like, this guy is absolutely brilliant. And then, of course, Fright Night. I'm a big fan of that. I love the 80s horror. But, and we're going to talk about that because I see that there's a number of, I guess, episodes that's tied in with you playing Peter Vincent.
Yeah, that's right. That was the documentary. It was called "You're So Cool, Brewster," the story of
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they asked me to play this, and basically I do all the links as Roddy McDowall playing Peter Vincent, the TV guy. So it's kind of a 3-layered thing. I'm not playing Roddy McDowall. I'm not playing Peter Vincent, but I am playing Peter Vincent, the TV personality.
Right.
As he would be if he was a real person. If you know what I mean. It was complicated. Yeah. It was really interesting. I spent a long time studying Roddy and learning all about him. He was completely loved in Hollywood by everybody. He was
brilliant actor. Yeah.
And he moved from Wales in the UK when I think he was like 11, and he moved to New York with his mother, and they were filming. They heard about this casting in LA for How Green Is My Valley, this film that they were about to shoot, which he got the part, and he never really looked back. And from then on, because he was there at that time, he was part of the Hollywood studio in the days where they would make Hollywood stars. They would train their stars on everything, on diction, on how to act, on how to be, on poise, everything. We don't really do that anymore, which is a shame. So It was old style Hollywood star, and his especially was absolutely superb. Puts us all to shame. Yeah,
very well spoken. Yeah, you could tell, even though he was a screen out, that he was a very intelligent man, and just absolutely brilliant. I mean, him as Cornelius and later on as Galen and stuff in the series, and then even in Night Gallery, I remember I fell in love with that. In fact, I bought the DVD, the complete series, because of him and that pilot episode. He's just absolutely brilliant actor.
I did a convention a few years later, and Chris Sarandon was sitting opposite me, and I was very nervously went over to him and said, I really hope you don't hate me. You know, I was trying to be respectful for Roddy, and I know everybody loved him. So I hope you enjoyed it. And he was lovely. He was very nice. In fact, Tom Holland said if he ever did, not the new Tom Holland, the old Tom Holland, the director of Fright Night, has said very kindly that if he was ever to make another Fright Night, then he would certainly have me in the running for playing Peter, which is you couldn't get a greater compliment.
Wow, wow, that's amazing, and that needs to happen now.
Telling me.
But just bear with me here because you mentioned Fright Night. You're So Cool, Brewster, which is the name of the documentary, which I'm guilty of not having seen that yet either. I don't know how some of these have slipped under the wire. But then I found some other titles that Werewolf of Moldova, Resurrection of Dracula, Psychedelic Death. These were titles that were separate on our IMDb. I'm just curious, was that inserts into the documentary, or was there shorts made in character as Peter Vincent?
These were like spoof. So also, these were like spoof trailers for films that Peter Vincent, had he been a real person,
oh man,
would have made back in his career. So they were trying to think back as to if he existed, and he was supposed to be a horror actor in his own day before he started doing his TV series.
yeah.
So they're trying to create these wonderful, and I think they really captured the films of those times. But we had Nick Vince, who played Chatterer in the Hellraiser 1 and 2. So he played a lot of the villains in those spoof trailers as well. We had a lot of fun filming those and being completely over the top. Everything on green screen, which was fun too. Yeah, so there were spoof trailers that we made.
That's amazing.
Now, but they're probably somewhere.
Well, and it's fun because I think one reason why, I mean, Fright Night is a great film, you know, but if you check my YouTube channel, it's broken up into playlists, and one of the segments that I do is I explore horror hosts, which happens to be, it was a very very big thing here in the country, especially like 60s, 70s, 80s. Every state had a horror host. And so when I saw Peter Vincent presenting this horror movie in a horror movie, I was like, I fell in love, you know, and it's something I hope to see. I wasn't the greatest fan of the remake, which tends to happen.
No, me neither. I didn't like. It was too brought up to date.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it wasn't respectful for the characters, I didn't think.
Yeah, and of course Roddy McDowall's character, he's almost so full of himself in that as being a legend, but he's fizzling out. And it was just the way he sold that was just fantastic.
What Roddy did was so clever because you empathize with him, you liked him, even though failed person and he was a broken person, you still felt for him, you empathized with him, and that is so important, I think, with any character, however unpleasant. You have to find a way of having empathy from your audience, otherwise the audience don't want to go with you. You know, you must know that.
Yeah. So is this Fright Night, You're So Cool, Brewster, is that something that's been available in the States, or?
Like most documentaries, it's available over there first, and then we get it kind of late over here.
Okay.
I don't know where. A lot of their stuff ends up on Amazon, so it might be on Amazon. If you were to go to, I'd have to look it up.
I'll do some research, but I'm sure some of my viewers will be like, "Hey, come on, man! It's over here. I've already seen it 20 times." You know what I'm saying? So I plan on finding it because I want to see that, and I definitely want to see Leviathan documentary. 7 hours seems kind of short for something I will obsessively enjoy, so I'm going to look into that. But let me ask you, let's talk about something else for a second. So in Butterball, you were weighted down. We didn't get to see much of Simon. You're confined in this Butterball Cenobite costume for Hellraiser 1 and 2. But we got to see a good look at you in a less restrictive wardrobe, playing what I regard as a lovable character.
Yeah.
Onaka, is that how we say it?
Yeah, it
And
is.
another cult classic film, Nightbreed, which is also written by Clive Barker.
Yeah, again, I think Clive took pity on me having all that makeup on, and I think for many of us actually, because again, Nick Vince was in there playing Moonhead,
Mm-hmm.
who had been Chatterer. Doug Bradley from Pinhead, he played my sidekick in Nightbreed. It was a lot of fun. It was great for me. We were by this time we were at Pinewood Studios, which is the biggest studio in the UK, and they have the James Bond studio there, which is the biggest in Europe, I think. We weren't in that one, but we were in the one next door, which was still vast. It had these huge sets. Like you say, I didn't have many clothes on in it, so I spent a few months going to the gym frantically. My very first time of ever going to a gym, going, I'm doing this movie. I've got virtually nothing to wear. You've got to go quickly.
Yeah. So that must have been a process too, because I don't think I don't assume you've got a pierced nipple with a medal hanging from it, and then I think it's been a while since I've seen that film, but I think there was like some suns tattooed on the chest and
tattoos all over me. It was back in the day. These days they do tattoos by putting transfers
yeah,
on.
yeah,
But back in the day, back in the 80s, they were hand painted every day. So, and they used like wax crayons.
okay,
So they painted them every morning onto my skin, and then they have this special stuff that they paint over it, and it seals it to your skin for the whole day.
uh-huh.
So cool. In fact, one of the days of filming, they got had different ones on different arms, and they got them mixed up. But look out for that. I've never
A little
noticed.
Easter egg or something, the Easter egg in there.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, Onaka was tattooed by angels before he was born, and he could never be seen because the creator would see the tattoo. So you were, I guess, banished to Meridian or Midian. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Clive wanted the idea that there was this like perfect creature, and because again the character had very little dialogue in that. I had no, but he was in so many scenes. So when I got the script, I thought, okay, so there's this character who seems to be in all these scenes, but I don't know what he's about. And Clive said, if you watch Death in Venice, there's a character in that. He doesn't say very much, but he's absolutely crucial to the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And he's this very beautiful boy, and the camera is on him a lot. And that's basically what's going to be happening to you. And this was he also gave me a whole load of other films to locate, but this was back in the days before the internet. I know it's crazy that there was a time before the internet, but there was. And so trying to locate obscure films, Italian films back then was really, really hard. And the only one I could find was Death in Venice. So, but I got where he was coming from, that this chap was going to be in a lot of shots. And he was, because it was going to be surrounded by these weird and wonderful creatures, he was the one that the audience really needed to empathize with the most.
Yeah.
Any bad vibes. So there's him, and there's the cat, the cat's child.
Yeah.
They're the two that suffer probably the most at the beginning, and they're the ones that the audience really go with.
Yeah.
And of course, with Danny Elfman's wonderful score on my final scenes was pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, Clive killed them off. Damn it, that's what.
Yeah.
It was very sad. It was very because Midian seemed like it could possibly be a very threatening and dangerous place, but Onaka was a gentle kindness, and he is somebody you could feel safe with. In fact, you'd almost feel the need to protect him because of how meek and shy and seemingly kind-hearted he was.
Yeah, and I think the idea was that Midian was a place that the monsters could go to, but it was also a place that anybody who was different
Yeah.
would. There was no judgment there. That was the idea of Midian. And I suppose it was Clive going from his gay background. That's what he was talking about. That there was this place where people that were different could go to, and they could be safe and not judged. Yeah, and my nipple, the only prosthetic I had in that was my nipple, which the prosthetics people were so busy on that film because it had more different monsters than any other film. It was in the Guinness Book of Records. I don't know if it still is, for the more different monsters than any other film. But I
Wow.
learned to stick on my own prosthetic nipple because obviously there was going to be this scene when the nipple was ripped, the metal was ripped out my chest.
Yeah.
So, every day I had to stick on my own nipple.
Hey, you're a trendsetter. What? Maybe start releasing silicone nipples with a metal hang. As a cosmetic, fashion. So, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then naturally, Clive was on set every day during all these processes and stuff. Now, how did you find him as a director? As far as
Again, he's incredibly generous. But by the time we got to Nightbreed, he'd settled in because he'd never directed a movie when we did Hellraiser. And he tells this wonderful story that when he found out he was going to direct it, he went to the local library to find a book on how to direct a movie, and they only had one copy, and it was out on loan.
oh wow,
So
yeah,
into the process, really not knowing how to direct a movie, which is
wow,
incredible.
that
When
is incredible.
But of course, by the time we got to Nightbreed, he was much more chilled. His mind is like a sponge,
Hmm.
so he was constantly picking the DOP's um, brain during Hellraiser to work out how lenses work, when you would use a different lens on a different shot, how shots were put together. So by the
Right.
time he got to Nightbreed, he kind of understood a lot more of what was
Yeah.
needed.
And of course, it's who you surround yourself with that helps as well
Yeah.
too. Because I'm a filmmaker. I've directed. I cannot make a movie by myself.
Yeah.
You need people. You need a director of photography, somebody who knows the art of capturing film in the best possible way. You need productions assistants and gaffs and all this other stuff. So it's who you surround yourself with, and as long as they show up to work with a positive manner, hungry and willing to meet the goal of getting this film done, then it comes together. But
Yeah, I think it's interesting actually talking to Doug Bradley about that because, of course, he carried on after Hellraiser 2. He carried on with the rest of the Hellraisers, but production moved over to your side of the pond. So he was working in the States, and he said there was a big difference between doing a feature film in the UK, where you walk onto set and the feeling from the crew as an actor is okay, show us why you're here. Impress us. Show us what you want to do and why you've earned your place to be here. Whereas he said completely the opposite. Once you walk onto a set in the States,
uh,
everybody's, oh, how can we help? What can we get you? How can we make your life easier? He said it was so much easier and so much more inclusive, and everybody's there to kind of work together as this fantastic team, which
mhm,
is always the case. In England, we're a bit more reserved
mhm.
and get the kind of the praise that perhaps you need as an actor to kind of to build your confidence up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just a contrast on, I mean, it's a contrast right down to the fact that you guys shoot at 25 frames per second, or was the word. Even the frame rate is different. But something, something worked because Hellraiser is a classic. Both the first one and second one, the story, the horror, the tension, the drama. It's all there. So whatever you guys did, it worked
I,
perfectly.
I think whenever I've seen it back, I always think a lot of that comes down to Clive. There's very little stuff in Hellraiser. There's very few scenes. Like, I don't think there are any scenes that aren't there for a reason. They're all there to move the story onto the next bit of the story. There's
Yeah.
no extraneous padding
Mhm.
anywhere, which happens a lot these days. Everything, it's trimmed down to what is exactly is needed. And because of that, you go along on this ride and it doesn't stop, because every scene you're moving on to something else. And okay, these days it is looking dated. The prosthetics are looking dated. You can see, because everything's so high definition, you
Yeah.
can stuff that you were never meant to see.
Mhm.
Because when the old style filming, everything was slightly blurred around the edges. It's going to be very interesting later this year to see the new Hellraiser. I'm very excited to see what they do, the remake,
Yeah.
or the reimagining of the Hellbound Heart. I
Mhm.
think it'll be good. It's got Hulu behind it. It's got Spyglass Entertainment behind it. It's got a really interesting cast. And Doug, again, I chat to Doug and Clive quite a lot. He went to a convention recently and he met the actor who plays Chatterer in the
Mhm.
new film. So that's interesting, because there is a Chatterer in the new film. We don't know. They're keeping it all so under wraps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just excited to see what it's going to be like.
That would be interesting. That'll be interesting. But a lot of us are purists and stuff like that. There's some of us that have already had their minds made up that they don't like it because it's not, they're purists. It's not the originals, and I can kind of understand that because you guys captured our hearts with those
Uh-huh.
films, and
I
and
can
whether
understand.
they look a bit rough or not now for the time, they're still classic films. You can't duplicate that now.
I saw an interview recently by one of the actors in it who was kind of he was they dropped, he was talking about something else on the interview, and then they dropped Hellraiser, so they kind of dropped this bombshell on him, and he obviously wasn't really prepared to talk about it, and he's obviously not allowed to talk about it. But he said something very interesting, that he hopes that his film will just recreate an interest, so people will go back and watch the source film, which is, I think, happens a lot of times with
Yeah,
these old films. The generation that don't want to watch an old 80s film, they're that's before they were born. But
yeah,
when the new ones, they say, oh, I wonder what the old one was back, and they'll go and find that. So he said he's hoping it will be good for all of us, and I share that opinion. I hope it'll be great for everybody, and
yeah.
it's great for Clive, because obviously there's been a little bit more interest with the new Candyman coming back,
Yeah.
and I know he's had some interest from Shudder as well for a TV series. So it would be good to see for Clive to have some.
So yeah, you're talking about King. We're talking about one Tony Todd, which you've worked in a film with Tony Todd, didn't you?
I haven't. Tony Todd, yes, I have. That's right. I did. Yes, I have.
The
I did.
original Candyman.
Well, yeah, he is the Candyman, and I've met him at quite a few conventions. But yeah, we did a film over here called Dead of the Night.
Okay, okay.
Was excellent in it. He played a kind of spooky caretaker type chap of this haunted house, and these kids were locked in there doing this documentary,
Mhm.
and I play a cop, or no, a cop's assistant, like a technical advisor to the police, trying to work out what has happened in this haunted house. Yeah, sadly we didn't have scenes together, and my scenes finished the day he was flying in from
Oh,
LA
oh, wow.
over here in Wales. So we didn't get to chat, but I meet him at conventions occasionally. He's lovely chap.
I've never met him, but I've heard that about him. He's a gentle giant, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
So, getting back to, let's see, we've got Book of Blood, which also was another Clive Barker story.
Yeah, that's right. So Book of Blood was the first of Clive's books that was ever published, and it was the start section of a book of short stories. And the story tells of this character, Simon McNeil, who is a fraudulent spiritualist.
Mhm.
And he pretends he can speak to the spirits, but he can't. And there is this place in Edinburgh where this house where spirit worlds are connecting. And this company is of psychic investigators are trying to work out what is going on, but they're getting stuck. So they hire Simon McNeil, not knowing he's a fraud, and lock him in this house to find and film him to find out what's going on. The next morning, they discover him, and the spirits have come down because they know he's a fraud. And on every section of his body, they have written little stories. So on his eyeball, there's a whole story.
Yeah.
And the books written on him are the stories of the books of blood. So he is the first story, and the stories written on him are the stories that are then in this book, which is why it's called the Books of Blood. And the reason I got into it was that Clive, when he was writing the character, wrote the character about me, not because I'm a fraud, but
Yeah.
he based this character on what I was at the time, which was kind of this innocent who wanted more out of life. I've got a first edition of the Books of Blood, and Clive's written in it to Simon, the McNeil boy par excellence. So when I found out they were filming it, I mean, the character's 19, by which point I was in my 30s, I contacted the casting director and the director. And I said, hey, you've got to give me a part in this movie. You know, it was written about me. And I heard nothing. So I emailed Clive, and the next morning on my emails, I had something from the casting director to the director. Yeah, of course, we'll have you in the movie. You know, come on, we'll get a part.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
I did a cameo in it, but it was nice to be part of it. And Joe Armstrong, who played me in it, all the way through filming it, I didn't tell him that he was playing me because I thought it would be quite a lot of pressure for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I did see it. It's been a long. I mean, that film's been out. I can't remember when that came, but I did see anything that had Clive Barker's name attached to it. I've seen. In fact, I read. It'd be interesting to see exactly how that man's mind works with these stories he comes up. I remember in the early days, late '80s, picking up a Clive Barker book, and on the back is a comment from Stephen King. So when Stephen King is making comments about you, you know you're doing something right. So, and you still keep in touch with them and everything?
Yeah, I'm going over to see him before Vegas. I'm going to go and stay with him in LA for a few days before I go to Vegas.
Well, tell him I want to interview him. I can't get a hold of him. I know he's a busy man. I would maybe someday naturally I'll run into him, but he's
a bit of a recluse.
Yeah.
But Stephen King was the reason really that Clive became so successful. It was Stephen King's comment. I've seen the future of horror, and his name is Clive Barker.
That's it. That's what I read.
That put Clive on the map. And with comments, everything would have been completely different. So for everything, all these films, it's Stephen King that we have to thank.
Yeah.
And his generosity, a lot of people would have seen Clive as competition, and certainly wouldn't have been as generous and saying, hey, welcome to the world. But that's what Stephen did. So I'm very grateful to him too.
That is profound. That's profound. So one more thing I want to talk to you about, because I'm not familiar with this. Dark Ditties. Is that exclusive to England or something? What's the story with that?
Oh, so they're available on Amazon Prime in the US and the UK. Nowhere else. I don't believe they're available in Canada, and I don't think they're available in the rest of Europe, which is a shame. So the company that made the documentaries, the Pennywise one that's just coming out, Leviathan, they decided that they wanted to have a go at making their own horror movies. So they created this world called Dark Ditties. It's a bit like Black Mirror meets Horror House of Horrors.
Oh man, you got me. I'm there. You sold me.
Each story is very, very British, but each story standalone story. But as you get to episode 4 or 5, you realize that there are connections. They're beginning to connect. So episode 1 is called The Offer. It had 5 of us from Hellraiser in it. Skin Man Frank, he was in it. Barbie, who was the female Cenobite in Hellraiser 2. Nick Vince again from Chatterer. Myself and Kenneth Cranham, who was Dr. Chenard in Hellraiser 2, the Mad Doctor. And it's a bit like Agatha Christie meets Saw.
Oh wow! Wow! Okay, yeah, I want to find it.
It's fun. It's a bit, because it was the first one. That one's quite rough around the edges. And the thing I love about them is I get to play all these different characters. I'm an executive producer on that as now. So that one I played an investment banker, which was great fun. A dark, nasty character.
Well, I saw on your demo reel, I don't know if it was in that series or not, but you were playing like an elderly woman.
So that's episode 2, Mrs. Wiltshire.
Okay, that was brilliant. That was great. Good
when
stuff.
we were at the end of filming on episode 1, they said, hey, we've got this character in the second film, and she's this old woman, and we wondered, do you think you could play an old woman? And I thought, well, it will just be a small character. And I thought, well, that's quite a challenge. They said we'll do prosthetics and everything else, and I went, yeah, okay. But I thought it would be quite a small character. Anyway, the script arrived, and she's basically, she talks to camera for like an hour. And there are a couple of other characters, a few other characters that come in, but it's this huge fuck off role. And I thought, wow, I almost said, look, this is too much.
Uh-huh.
I thought, no, I will kick myself forever if I don't try and embrace this. It's a huge opportunity. So yeah, and it wasn't a man trying to play a woman. It was supposed to be an actual old woman.
Yeah.
In a house, trapped there by the spirit of her dead husband, who was abusive to her in real life.
Oh, yeah.
He's trapped there because his spirit is still there, being abusive to her in death.
Yeah.
Very moving and very, very dark. It's the darkest of the dark ditties.
Yeah.
If you like your horror deeply disturbing, then Mrs. Wiltshire is
So you
that.
weren't playing no Miss Bucket from You're Being Served. You were playing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then the third one, after the third one, I said, look, please don't give me a role quite so huge as that one. I mean, actors never say that, but it was huge. So they gave me a tiny little role that got killed off in the first 5 minutes. And that was
Asking Ye Shall Receive, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Wish for. So yeah, I played an accountant who'd stolen from the mob, and it starts off where he's just thrown himself out of a moving car because he realizes he's in the car with 2 assassins who are going to kill him.
Uh-huh.
And he's got the briefcase chained to his wrist, locked briefcase. So he's completely messed up and like blooded and bruised, and he's trying to run away from these. So that was fun.
Okay.
And episode 4 was the Witching Hour, about these guys, a film trick queue, like one of these ghost story people TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
That go to this really haunted house, and it happens to be the same haunted house that's in episode 1, so it is haunted.
Uh-huh.
And horror happened to them, and I play a creepy groundsman, a bit like Tony Todd's character actually in that. Episode 5 has just come out, and that's a zombie apocalypse movie, set way in the future, but still connects to all these other episodes. It's so clever.
Oh wow.
And that's my favorite. It's very well written. That's called Dad. And then episode 6 we've got the script for, but we are waiting from the funding. The funding comes from the documentaries. So the funding that we will hopefully now be getting from Pennywise, the story of it, will fund episode 6, which is the series finale. So
Nice. So you're still yet to come up to bat again here. So you still got some. You got anything else that you're working on too, or something that's coming, or?
Yeah, I did a few things during lockdown, and one of them, a Mosaic, which is an anthology film, a horror again, about this cop who has these unconnected, gruesome murders, and they are obviously different murderers, but there's one thing that connects them all, and he cannot get his head around how all these different gruesome, horrible murders are connected. And it's a little bit like the old horror anthology films, and there are lots of little stand around stories. And then
now, is this in post-production? You've already done this, or
in post-production? I did my scenes ages ago, but because it's little films, they're all kind of. But I think it did say on IMDb due out 2023, but I think they've just changed that to 2020. I hope it's 2022.
Yeah.
So that hopefully, I mean, the good time for that obviously is Halloween, to bring out any horror
films.
Well,
that sounds awesome.
Excited to see that one.
Yeah.
And then I did my first science fiction film, Project Skyquake, which out a few months ago, which was fun. I love science fiction, so I'd love more of that if anybody's listening. I love science fiction.
There you go. You keep that. Take a note on that, guys. Well, Simon, I'll tell you what. It's been an honor talking to you, sir. And is there any like if you provide me with any links, like I don't know, do you have a fan page or something like that? We could, like, if somebody wanted to get an autograph from you, say like me wants to get an autograph from you, how would somebody go about doing that?
Any day, you know what I mean? I'll just send one to you. But I don't tend to do any of that. I mean, you can find me on Facebook. Just kind of send me a friend request and I'll friend you back. Or Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I am on Insta, but I don't do very well on Insta. It was just one platform too far for me. I don't have time for it. So, yeah, just say hi. As far as sign stuff, I tend to do it at the conventions, so I just keep it for the conventions because it just gets too complicated otherwise.
Yeah.
If you wanted a group one, I know Doug Bradley sells them on his website, so we sign those and send them to Doug, and he sends them and sends us some dollars.
Yeah. Well, I hope you make it this boot camp part. Like I said, I will make a point to come up there and say, "Hey, the American Butterball has made it to the show." And
I'll get in contact with Petey, see if I can get there next year. That would be cool. That would be good.
that would be cool. And then, but anyways, I really thank you. And maybe you can check back in when some of these other projects hit. We can have you back on if you know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'll send you some links, and
That'd be great.
I'll keep watching the videos for your how-to stuff as well.
Yeah, if you want to make some Dollar Tree shrunken heads, man, came to the right man. So
Dollar stores over here, but we have pound stores, and they sell the same stuff.
thank you again, Simon. I really do appreciate it, sir. And
Thank
good
you.
luck to you. I'll be keeping. You got me. I'm gonna be doing some research here because I got to see some of this stuff. Leviathan, Hellraiser documentary, the You're So Cool, Brewster, Fright Night documentary, and then of course the Dark Ditty. So there's enough to keep us all going for a while until your next project comes to light. So,
Cool, lovely. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for having me on.
yes, sure thing. Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
I want to thank you again, Simon, for coming on here and talking with us. So that was one of the best interviews I'd ever done. I really thoroughly enjoyed talking to Simon. It felt very comfortable, and it was awesome to hear the BTS behind the scenes of working with Clive Barker and on such a classic franchise as Hellraiser 1 and 2, not to mention Nightbreed. Good stuff. And I wish Simon the best of luck, and hopefully he'll come back on the show and share with us his future projects. So, anyways, guys, if you haven't done so already, hit the like and subscribe button, and show my brothers some love. Keith from Cobwebs and Candlesticks, and Vic Springson from Monster Misfits. Together we make the Trio of Terror. And I appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, peace.
Your suffering will be legendary even in hell.
Oh.